how to plan for the Pathfinder year's activity. Now, if you don't plan, your club won't work. I will tell you, planning is of the essence. You really need to spend time planning with your staff officers and to get those plans all probably line up for the year and submit it to church board to ensure there are no clashes and so on. All right, so what are some of the things to consider when you plan for your Pathfinder calendar, for your Pathfinder year activities? Now, these are the things, okay? I will go through one by one. First one you have to consider is the recruitment, or we call it the enrollment of new members. And because they have been recruited, you need to have a ceremony about 3 months later to officially accept them into the membership. And that's known as the induction service, which I will talk about later. Now, another thing you need to do every year without fail, because as your club expands, and also because people come and go, you got to keep looking for new officers, all right? Because all officers will sometimes have to go overseas to work, or they get too tired, they become pregnant, they have babies to take care of, right? Or for that matter, if your club is getting too big and you need more officers, you've got to constantly, every year, plan to source, all right, for new officers, and also groom them. By grooming, I'm talking about training them, mentor them, so slowly they can take over those major positions. Then, of course, you got to plan what are the honors to teach this year. Ideal is that don't teach more than 8 honors a year. If you do more than 8 honors a year, you actually rush. You'll be rushing through too much. Because why? Because you also have a class. You know, you want every Pathfinder to complete at least one class every year. If they're 10-year-old, they finish a friend class. 11, the companion class, and so on. So you have to consider this. Okay, who's going to teach it, when they're going to teach it, and that kind of stuff. All right. Now the other thing is, what are the values to be imparted? Now, this is something that many clubs don't plan, but I think this is so essential. Pathfindering has a lot to do with imbibing or absorbing good Christian values, values such as respect, love for the Bible, love for God, love for humanity, honesty, being filial, that it means being respectful and obedient to your parents, that kind of stuff, okay? So I will teach you how to go about planning so that such values will actually be imparted because we plan for it, okay? Another thing, community service. Now, a good club every year should be involved in at least one, now I emphasize, at least one community service. If you don't even do one, I will not rank your club highly. Your club should be at least involved in one, if more would be good, one community service project. That's my strong recommendation for a very good high standard club. Now, you also got to plan for the outdoor activities, the excursion to the museum, to the zoo, those are called excursion, or to the science center, and also to plan your camping. These really require a lot of planning, because if you don't plan, the park or the camping ground has been booked by somebody, right? And if you don't plan, you find that you don't have enough staff to manage. Outdoor activity, you really require a lot of staff due to safety concern. If you don't plan, there won't be transportation to bring those people there, and all kind of problems. So again, I will talk about this. And of course, the last thing, all right, of course, there are many more things, but these are to me, 7 important areas you got to plan. You got to plan for Pathfinder Day. Every year, we celebrate Pathfinder Day, and usually on that day, we also have the Pathfinder Messenger. All right, so these are the 7 things I will talk about in terms of planning for the year activity. All right, first of all, let me talk about Pathfinder recruitment or enrollment. And of course, then you have the 22 candle ceremony that we call the induction ceremony, also called induction. To be inducted means to be officially enrolled. You are officially now a member of the club. That's what I mean by inducted. All right, you are now inside, no longer outside. So what are the things to consider? All right, we are now talking about recruitment, then followed by induction, okay? Who are the ones you are planning to recruit? Now, this is a major question to ask. If you have a school, like in some of our churches in Thailand, Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak, we have Adventist schools, then we try to recruit those Pathfinders from the school, or if possible, even start a school-based club. Now, in Thailand, we have many school-based clubs, okay? And of course, in some places like Singapore, we have a church-based club, but we recruit those people from the school to join. Then you have the church kids. Now, of course, that is our concern. Our own Adventist kids, parents with kids. Then neighborhood kids. Now, when I was in England many years ago, not that many, about 5 years ago. I was invited to Birmingham, and then there was a club that I was so impressed, and that's where I was invited to be the speaker as well as the special guest of honor for the investigator service. Guess what? That club is actually a community club. By that, it means they draw their membership from the community, right? So the majority of the kids are non-Adventist. So they are very careful in how they implement the activity, not to be too overly religious, so you might frighten the kids off. But through that, many are coming to church. Through that, many have actually eventually even got to love Jesus, and they become members of our church. Right, so these are the questions to consider. Who are we planning to recruit into the club? Friends, relatives, children of friends, relatives, and so on. When are you going to do the recruiting? Now, here's a good question, point to remember. Every year, perhaps have 2 intake, okay? One in January, one in June. Don't have people coming in between those 6 months because it's very disruptive. So my suggestion is that you really plan and you inform everyone. This year, our intake, that means we are taking in people, January so-and-so, and then in July so-and-so, 2 intakes, right? So people know when to come in, and so you will not disrupt your program too much. All right, so then where are you going to do the recruitment? Are you going to do it in the church, in the school, or whatever? All right, and very important, remember to advertise your enrollment so people know when is the enrollment date, okay? Now, what methods do we use to recruit now? Here is a very good example. Have what we call a Pathfinder Enrollment Day, right? Or sometimes have a Pathfinder Exhibition Day, okay? Or sometimes we call it the Road Show. Or you can recruit people during the Pathfinder Days. I'm going to talk about it a bit more. All right, now, in the Pathfinder Enrollment Day, which is the one I was talking about earlier on, the Pathfinder Enrollment Day, which is special, what do you do? Some of the suggestions I will give you is this. Remember, now you're inviting the parents to be there and the potential children will be joining. They are all there listening and they are wondering what Pathfinder is all about. You've got to really showcase, you've got to really, in this 1 hour or half an hour, really impress them that it's wonderful to join the Pathfinder Club. So what do? You get the Pathfinder themselves, those old Pathfinders who have been in the club for about a year or so, who really love the club, and ask them to actually share their testimony of what the club has done for them and how grateful they are to join the club. They've got new friends, they've got new skills, and that kind of stuff. And they enjoy camping and hiking, that kind of stuff. And if possible, if you have a very grateful father or mother who is so grateful that ever since his son or daughter joined the club, oh, the son and daughter has become more disciplined and so eager and passionate to learn things. Now, get this so-called grateful parent to also go upstage on that day to share the testimony about how ever since my son or my daughter joined the club, my son and daughter have really become a much better kids. And so they all know that there are indeed very wonderful benefits of joining the club. And by the way, there's a typo error here while I'm at it. I better correct it. Okay. Oh, sorry. Joining. All right. Uh-oh. So this is something that I would strongly recommend. All right. To get parents and also Pathfinder to give testimony. Now, very important. If yours is an old club, if yours is a brand new club, you can't do this. But if yours is an old club, then show the photo report of the last year activity. Show them all the pictures of the skills you learned, the semaphore, the dog honor, the cat honor, or whatever, your camping, your excursion to the zoo, that kind of stuff. All the fun pictures, right? Where the Pathfinder looks so happy and they are so excited. Now, have a photo exhibition of last year activity. You either print out the photo or you do a PowerPoint presentation. Now, very important during enrollment day, have an exhibition of all the exhibits of all the craft that was taught that year or even before. So it's good to keep the best example of the string art, the best example of the so-called grass painting, the best example of whatever craft, and a knot tying board. You know, if you have a knot tying board, right? If you have got a what I call a mannequin, dress up a mannequin with the Pathfinder uniform with the sash and so on, right? And also get the Pathfinder to demonstrate skill, especially first aid, semaphore, Morse code, if they know this thing. And the parents will be impressed. Wow, this is what my kids will be learning, So they actually can see for themselves through pictures, through the testimonies, and through the actual exhibition of crafts, all right, and all the honors they've learned, and most importantly, the demonstration of skills that they've learned. And of course, on the enrollment day, have a question and answer period. Let the parents ask any question they want and assure them that their kids will be well taken care of. Right? This is our pledge to them. When you join our club, your kids will be well taken care of. Right. So now let's talk about the second thing, honors to be taught. Now, this really involves a lot of planning. Okay. So first ask yourself, how many honors are we going to teach, get my Pathfinder to earn this year? As I told you, my recommendation is don't do more than 8 a year. Now, on their own, if they are very smart kids, they may want to do it on their own together with the help of the parents. Now, that one we do encourage private initiative. But from the club side, what I would suggest is that we try to have 1 quarter 2 honors, right? So that in 1 year you complete 8, right? So ask yourself, what are those honors? And then listen to this point. Make sure it's a healthy mix. You remember when I was teaching you about the honors, we have 8 different categories. Remember, the white are the nature, the green is the recreational honors, the dark blue are the missionary ministry type. Remember, the orange is the household arts, the brown is the outdoor industry. Now try to have a mix of different colors so they don't consistently earn only from nature or only from recreation. So every year have different categories being taught, and that's what I mean by a healthy mix. Now, very important is quickly find who will be teaching them. Now remember, instructor need not be Pathfinders. If you have somebody out in the community who is an expert in dogs or cats or horses or bee, you know, get them to teach, you know, and this person will bring you to the bee hive, the bee farm, to see how bees are cultivated, taken care of and harvested the honey. So you can get people from outside, but again, it requires planning. You got to inform them early, book a date, and get them to pledge that they will indeed teach it on such and such a date, right? So this is very important. And then when will this be taught? Write down in the calendar and remember to remind the instructors that on so and so you will be scheduled to teach. We are all looking forward. It's because those in the community you can forget, all right? Those who are not in our church. So you've got to remind them. So remember, write that down. When will this be taught? Now, very important, when will the honor be completed? You have a starting date. You must have a termination date. Honor cannot go on and on forever. So every honor, you got to tell them, all right, this honor must be completed. The last deadline is on so and so, right? So that all of them will not be lazy and they will really work towards it. And counselor, your job is to ensure all your Pathfinders complete the requirements. And then, very important, can your club afford to do this honor? Why am I saying this? Some honor, like, for example, the aerial modeling, model railroad, that kind of thing, it is expensive, you know, those are expensive. So you have to ask yourself, can your club afford to do this honor? Now, sometimes you may even get someone from the outside who is willing to sponsor that honor, okay? Especially somebody who say, hey, I want to introduce all of you to aerial modeling. So I will show you how we put a little engine on that plane and you can actually see it fly, you know. So you can also get outside people to sponsor that honor, especially if it's too expensive, all right? Now, next category, I mean, in this aspect, what are the classes to be taught? Remember, we have 6 classes in the Pathfinder Club. So again, since last year, the 10-year-old has really completed friend, they should be moved on to the companion. But then if you have got 2 or 3 new Pathfinders who are 10-year-old, then you also need to have a counselor or instructor to teach the friend class, while another instructor will teach those in the advanced class. Now, in a very desperate case where you have not enough instructor, then you have what we call co-sharing or co-teaching. The same instructor will get the Pathfinders in the friend class and the companion together, and you, who is the instructor, will get them to do their friend homework, and after that, get those in the companion to do. Now, of course, it's not ideal. It's best to have an instructor for each class rather than sharing. That's why I mentioned you really need to look for instructors so that we have instructor for each of the class. That would be the best. All right, what are the things to consider? What classes will be taught? Now, remember, in my union, the basic advanced is all integrated. So when you do a friend at the end of the year, you will get both friend and advanced friends. So I don't know which system you're using. Remember, our world is so big, we have different way of doing things. I personally would like the fact that when you go through the class at the end of the year, you complete both the basic and advanced so that they get their friend strip and also their advanced ribbon, right? They also get a ribbon, their uniform looks good. right? So ask yourself, what classes will be offered and who will be teaching the classes. So remember, now that you find that we have a lot newcomers who have just joined and they're 10 years old, you really need to have somebody. While those who have graduated to the companion class, you also have to find another. And those who have graduated to the explorer class, you also need to find another. So that's why I said there's an ongoing need for staff, ongoing need for people to run all these classes. This one take up a lot of time. Now, get a workbook for each of the class. Now, you really need to look through all the requirements, print them out, and have the answers inside if possible. So it becomes a workbook so that all Pathfinder will bring the workbook and the instructor simply go through the workbook with them, covering it bit by bit, because the requirement has been spread out. Now, this is something you need to plot it in the calendar. January, we'll teach requirement 1 to 5, and then, 1 to 4, and then February, we'll teach requirement so and so. So within the year, you will be able to complete both the basic and advanced courses, right? So remember, even as with the honors, you also have to have a completion date. One is the last date to finish the friend, the last date to finish companion. Now, all this got to be plotted in the Pathfinder calendar. So again, you have to plan. Values to be imparted, the next category. Now, there are many values, like, for example, the value of being connected, to be sociable, of being active and not lazy, to be resilient. What does it mean resilient? That if you fall, you rise up, you don't give up. If you fail, you work, you stand up again. To be resilient is a very good quality. To be aware, so to no longer be so self-absorbed, but be aware of the needs of other people. To be conscious that this world is not just you, but the other people. To be respectful, as also to be respected, and to be responsible. So there are so many honors, so many values. So these are just some. So how do we do that? All right. So first, determine what value will be imparted this year. My personal suggestion is that every quarter you have one value. Okay, so every 3 months, for all our devotion, we try to focus on that value. So all the talks will all be geared towards value, to that value. And when we go for special trip, we try to perhaps visit the home of a hero, or someone who is an example of honesty, of a patriot of the country, or whatever, So you got to write down this year what will be the values we want a Pathfinder to learn, such as the value of self-sacrifice, courtesy, filial piety. Filial piety is to be respectful, obedient, and loving to your father and mother. That's what we mean by filial piety. Now, for the Chinese community, this is such an important word. In fact, I tell you, if I were to run the club where the majority are Chinese kids, and if this thing is not taught, I'm not going to get many parents to support. This is such a very important value among the Chinese community, to be respectful and obedient to parents. All right. Okay. Then honesty, responsibility, and so on. Again, who will be teaching these values? We could to ask. Probably much of it will be done through the worship of values. All right. Or you can sometimes invite a police officer to speak on honesty, or someone who is a hero in the country to speak on the need to be responsible. Get people from the community perhaps to speak on a particular topic, okay, that you are emphasizing on during that quarter. Or maybe if you want, every 6 months you have one value. It's up to you. Now, through what means are we going to teach these values? One way will be the value campaign. That means you say, okay, Pathfinders, during the next 6 months, we will have an honesty campaign. So throughout the whole 6 months, we try to ask them to look for articles on value and to write articles, to write a short essay on the importance of honesty and so on. So that's what I mean by a value campaign. Or special talks by people from the police force who emphasize how important honesty is or whatever. Or a video clip of somebody who was honest, who returned a lot of money that he found, and he was blessed for doing that. Now, you can also teach value through the camping trip, during the campfire. You tell stories about a certain value, or even during the nature hike, illustrate, how hardworking the ants are. Because your value that quarter was being hardworking, being diligent. And so when you go for nature, ask them to look at the ants and see how hardworking those ants are. And so through all these different ways, you are imparting the values, right? Now, the next thing you really got to plan, and this one I want to spend a bit more time talking. Outdoor activities, excursion, and camping require a lot of planning. Why? I tell you why. Because of the safety concern. You've got to be careful, all right? Every time you bring a Pathfinder to the outdoor where there is the presence of water deep enough where a person who can't swim will drown, you got to make sure that you have every safety precaution enforced and written in your camp booklet that you cannot go near those places without someone, and that you have to, it is a highly supervised activity and so on. Now, so I'll talk about this, okay? Right. Now, before that, let me just say something. This was a picture that I love. This guy was the one who was helping with this Pathfinder trip, and they love it. You know why? He did his homework in Singapore before he brought them out. He looked through the trail and look at what are the notable things to watch out for. So all along the trip, he said, "Stop, stop, stop! I want you to look under this." And then they saw something incredible, you know, the stick insect or whatever, you know, or a termite nest. And then when you go further, then he will say, "Stop, stop, stop!" And then he will look. Then he show them a particular poisonous tree or whatever. And you know, the kids love it. It's no longer just walking like a Sunday morning walk. No, it is an educational, highly spiritual, value-added hike. So this is something I really recommend. Right, going outdoors, enabling you to learn from nature. All right, these are the things to consider. What are the outdoor activities we want for our Pathfinder to participate in? Every year, have at least one camp. Yes, at least one camp. If more, even better. At least one hike. Okay, this is good. At least one excursion. You know, bring them to the zoo, to the museum, even to the art gallery or some places of interest. Right. Now, high element adventure refers to this. Okay. Now, this one are for senior Pathfinder. You don't get a 10-year-old to do this. Okay. It's a bit costly unless you can somebody to sponsor. This refers to high element. All right. This something the Pathfinder really enjoy because they put on safety gear. You can see that, and it's quite high. You know, so it's a highly supervised activity. So this is known as high element adventure. So you need to book all these things ahead of time, and you have the money for that. Okay. So when are we going to these places and what is the cost? Now, this is a question you need to ask yourself. So when you go through planning, go through this list, okay? So I provided you a very handy list to go through. When you plan something, look at this, go through this long before the activity. What will our Pathfinder learn from such activity? Like example here, they learn teamwork because some of these things had been done through team, right? So and then for the hike, what will they learn from this hike? They learn the importance of being hardworking like the ants, you know, right? And then about how people, some of them, they are not principled. They keep changing their mind, just like the camouflage insect. They change color so easily. That kind of thing. So you can use nature to teach a whole variety of values. Okay, right? So what will the Pathfinder learn from such activity? Right? Who will be involved in the planning and the organizing? Now, of course, planning is the whole stuff. Organizing it, this one you can involve parents to be involved in the activity, right? And who will be actually helping out on that day. Now, this is important. Now, here is where I will stop and mention 3 very important principles you must remember. Every time you have an outdoor activity, especially where there is a presence of water, which is deep enough for somebody, if he doesn't know to swim, can drown, you got to be very careful. My first thing I want to tell you is this. If you go camping, you must have a camp booklet where the rules and regulations are clearly printed. This is to protect you so that if something bad happens, you will not be sued. Why? It's already written in the camp booklet that our rules is that this swimming is a supervised activity. You cannot go into the water by yourself. Right, and that you can only go during the such and such a time, and there must be a buddy system, that kind of thing. Now, because those rules were stated in the booklet, and if later some naughty boy went swimming and got drowned, you cannot be blamed. You know why? It was already stated in the rules. Now, if you don't have it black and white, or at least get a Pathfinder to sign the form when they go out that they will respect all the rules concerning camping, especially water safety, you will be in trouble. So I need you to protect your club from being sued, right? Being sued. I tell you, this is a serious legal matter because I tell you, I have already seen, let me see how together, 2 clubs that had problem in this. Both involve drowning, and it's sad, you know, to this day. Very sad that we have one Pathfinder in Singapore who drowned, another adventurer Pathfinder, I mean, staff. She was just 16 who drowned in Sabah, Malaysia. I tell you, it's a personal pain for me every time I think about that. So 3 very important S: safety, all right, especially if there's a presence of water or there's a deep well, all right, or safety when it comes to this high element, they cannot go up by themselves. It is a highly supervised activity. Nobody should climb up this high element by themselves, all right, especially if you're camping near such an area. This is a supervised, adult supervised activity. Right, then security. Now this is important. Things get stolen, and of course girls, especially when there are girls camping, it's dangerous. You know, outsider may come and you have cases of molestation and so on. So you must make sure the girls are protected, that you have an adult lady counselor sleeping with them, and when they go to the toilet, they are being escorted, especially at night. And even the young boys too. This security is very, very important. All right, nobody should go to the toilet at night by themselves. It has to be escorted by a counselor or somebody, because we are and of course, you know, in a public area, have around the clock security to make sure no stranger comes in. Very important, sanitation. Make sure there's adequate water. In the absence of water, sickness will happen. So sanitation is important. Plates and cups and cooking utensils must be washed, right? It must be far away from the toilet. There's no bacteria, no contamination whatsoever. So the 3S: safety, security, sanitation. Whenever you go camping, outing, excursion, consider these 3 things, all right? Bring the hand sanitizer, bring the first aid box, all right? Bring the, what do you call that, antihistamine, especially if somebody get stung by a bee and they develop hives. They're very allergic to bee stings and that kind of stuff. You must have all these things in your first aid box. Now remember to book all those places in advance, because you know those camping areas are popular. A lot of people want to book those areas. So if you do think last minute, the campsite is already booked by somebody. So that's what I mean. Okay, book the buses to bring them there. Everything, if you do it early, you'll be successful. Now we talk about next area: community service project. The Pathfinder should be involved in the community service project once a year, like going out to paint the park or something. And the people in the community will be so impressed that the Pathfinder leaders are taking their Pathfinders to do this community service project. So I really encourage this, right? So ask yourself, what can our Pathfinder do for the community this year? Maybe even brainstorm with the Pathfinder. Hey, Pathfinder, what shall we do this year for our community? All right, and let them come out. Raise money, for example, raise money for the poor. That is always a need. Or go and paint the community, or pick up rubbish from the beach and so on, right? And then, are you able to work with the government on this community service? Sometimes the government encourage you, and they will actually give you the brooms, the gloves, you know, and they'll give you the dustbin, and they will have adults to help supervise you to do the beach cleanup, or the NGO, the so-called non-government organization agency, who will be more than happy to have you take part in their environmental what do you call it, protection projects and so on. Right? Now, my recommendation is that seek to have a sustained effort to create impact. What I meant is that it would be good if you have a project that you try to do it every year, so that the community remembers you. Every year you come back to the park to repair this, or to clean it, or to plant trees. You see, this is what I mean by a sustained effort. This will definitely create impact, consciousness among the community, all right, rather than a one-time project that nobody remember you after that. If you keep doing the same thing for at least one project every year, like visiting the old folks home, and every year without fail you visit the old folks home, the people in the old folks home will remember you, and they will always say, wow, this is one club, never fail every year during Christmas or whatever special day, they will come to visit our old folks home and bring cheer and so on. right? Now, of course, very important question, do we need to raise funds for the project? Sometimes, yes. If you visit the old folks home, you want to bring food hampers for them, right? Or even money for them, or donating food. You need to plan all these things, all right? Now, by the way, when you do old folks home visit, you'll be surprised many shopping, what do you call that, supermarket, they are quite willing to donate food. If you go to them and say, sir, we are from the Pathfinder Club, and on this day, we are visiting this Cheshire old folks home. Those people are very poor, and we are going there to clean their places, and we are hoping to also donate some food. Do you have any, would you mind donating? And many of those, what do you call that, supermarket, they are willing to donate, especially what I call things that's got only 6 more months of expiry, or we call it the near shelf life. Now, of course, if those food are still eaten within 6 months, it's still okay, you know. But so those kind of products, supermarket tend to be willing to donate. But of course, you got to tell the old folks, the people running old folks home, please eat it within 6 months because of the expiry date or whatever. When you go to do community service, get your Pathfinder to wear the uniform or at least the T-shirt to identify themselves, to create an impact. So people know the Pathfinder love the community, Pathfinder are responsible, Pathfinder are civic-minded, they love the country and so on, okay? All right, so let me talk about some of the ideas about community project. I have 6 of them for you. Adopt a park. That means you go to the park, and like this one, you know, every year you go to paint the thing, what do you call that, plant new trees or whatever you can do. Ask the person in charge of the park, what can we do every year, right? And paint, put on new signboard or whatever. Now this is always welcome, all right? So adopt a park and take care of it year after year. Raise fund for the needy, the old folks home, that, I mean, for the poor, the orphans, and then visit the old folks home. These are always appreciated. Go and sing them, right? And do a drama for them. The old folks love it, okay? Right? Then serve as first aider. Now, of course, to do that, all your Pathfinder must be certified first aider, so that when there is a marathon race or when there is a sporting event, your Pathfinder can be part of the first aid team. Or if there's flooding, if they've been trained in all the so-called first responder and all the disaster relief, they can be part of the disasters relief team during the flood or whatever. Now, this requires training, okay? So unless a Pathfinder are trained, don't do this, okay? Plant a tree program. Now, this is part of the Green Earth policy, and some parks encourage you to either buy a little seedling and you go and plant the tree program, all right? This is good. Now, beach cleaning is always appreciated. The beach tend to be polluted after a while due to the wave bringing all those rubbish. And if once a year or twice a year you can go to the beach to do beach cleaning, this is always appreciated. All right, now let me talk about Pathfinder Day investiture. By the way, this I will expand much further, okay? This is just talking about planning. Now, Pathfinder Day. Pathfinder Day is traditionally on the 3rd Sabbath of September. So plan for it, the 3rd Sabbath of September. It's a good time to recruit new members to use Pathfinder Day, and also a good time during Pathfinder Day to recruit staff. Why? Church member will be able to see what Pathfinder has done for the kids. And then you appeal to church member, we need more staff for this coming year. Would you please sign up for 6 months to help or for 1 year? So this Pathfinder Day is a good time to recruit new members as well as to recruit new officers. Advertise your Pathfinder Day well in advance, okay? You must advertise your Pathfinder Day in advance so people are aware of that day. Plan who you are going to invite now, especially special guests. Sometimes you want to invite the special community leader to come, or the so-called members of another church to come, right? Or because you have a joint club, or you invite the conference, the mission, or the field director to come for this event, right? Who are you going to invite? It's, of course, very important to invite the parents. What kind of team? Now, it's good on the Pathfinder Day you have a team, right? A Pathfinder is honest, and then or whatever, or Pathfinding. Once a Pathfinder, always a Pathfinder. That kind of stuff. Have a team for your Pathfinder Day, all right? Plan for the Pathfinders to be in full uniform. Now, this, of course, is important. So all the new members, rush to get them in full uniform, right? And decorate the church well with the Pathfinder, with a Pathfinder ambience. You put the Pathfinder, you make all the giant Pathfinder honors, and you decorate the whole church with all the honors, with the Pathfinder flag, the pledge and the law, aim, motto, and decorate the church with for example, with a tent, you know, I mean, to show that Pathfinder camping, that kind of stuff, right? That's what I mean with the Pathfinder ambience. Order material ahead of time, because on Pathfinder Day, you also investiture. So on the Pathfinder Day, long before it, you should have all these honors and insignia for the classes, the chevron, the class pins, the ribbon. You should have ordered all these things long before the investiture, so that on that day, you actually give them out and not what I call an IOU piece of paper. That's very bad. Pathfinder will be very disappointed on that day. They expect to receive it, and you should have done that. That's why my personal standard is that when I teach an honor, I really bought it, and I will show it to the Pathfinder and say, hey, look, this is what you'll be getting, all right, during Pathfinder Day. I really bought it for you, okay? So it's yours. Right. I also talk about sourcing and grooming for new officers. This is important. You need to keep looking for new people. The club will grow, and you want your club to grow. And one of the ways to grow is to have a lot of staff. And I tell you, the more staff you have, the more relaxed you are. The less staff you have, the more stressful you are. So it makes sense to source for new officers. Those who are 16, 17, you can already rope them in already. They can be trained as junior counselors and so on, you know. All right. And those from the outside people, you can also ask them to come in. Now, the reason why we have to source new officers is because staff members come and go. Yes, they come and go, right? They get pregnant, then for one whole year, they cannot come anymore. Or they get transferred to overseas, then you lose a member. Or they die, or they go through old, or they get tired, or so on, right? So that's why you must constantly look for new members, new officers to join the club, to serve the club, sorry. And then, as the Pathfinder Ministry is important, you yourself must plan to have people to replace you. Yes, because if you, as a good leader, has not planned for what I call leadership succession, somebody to succeed you, then you're not a good leader. What I meant is that if you go, then the club collapses. That means you have not been a good leader. A good leader always plans for his eventual departure. Meaning to say, if you go, the club will still survive. Why? You have already trained new people to take over from you. So this is what I want to tell you. The Pathfinder Ministry is more important than you, right? So when you leave, the club must not die. When you leave, you have already got people trained, mentored, and with experience to take over from you. And that's how the club will continue to survive. So remember, plan for replacement, even of you, the leader, all right? All right. Now, those potential officers can be what I call short-term officers. They are recruited from church members who cannot afford a one-year support, but they are willing to come to serve for 3 months or 6 months. Even that, we appreciate it. It's better than nothing, all right? So if 6 months I get this person to help, another 6 months another person help, that's fine, right? And so you can get it from church members or even from supporters from outside who like what you're doing, and they're willing to come to support, to teach and honor, or part of the requirement for the class. Parents and even senior members who are retired, you can get them. Now, they may not want to sign up for a year, but if they can come and serve for 3 months, 6 months, or just to teach and honor or part of the requirement, already you have done a wonderful thing, all right? Now, for long-term officers who serve for 1 year and continue serving, provide training for them. They all eventually should become master guide. Anyone who serves as a club officer should all work towards become a master guide, and you constantly have training to upgrade them, all right, from their for the officers, so they're constantly being trained. All right, now in closing, let me just talk about, let me see. Yeah, just 4 more slides, okay. Let me talk about a Pathfinder calendar events. Now, you need to come up with a big calendar, put it in your club so everybody can see, and in the calendar they can see, oh, January, we are doing this, oh, February, we are doing that. It's good to have a make your own big, gigantic calendar, put it prominently in your club classroom, and so Pathfinder can see, and then of course you go to print it out and list it out, the activity, to give it to your club members. Now, many Pathfinder clubs unfortunately don't do that. So if I were to go to a club and say, hey, can you give me your list of events for this year? And if you're one of those clubs who don't have what I call a list of events for this year, please start doing it now. Okay, that's why you attend a Pathfinder Staff Training, so you can become what I call a truly high standard, top efficient Pathfinder leader. You understand the importance of planning. You should have a list of things you'll be doing for the Pathfinder year, so that if somebody asks you, you can say, "Hey, this is my copy for you," and a new member come and you can give it to them, or a new officer join, you can give it to them, and the church board has a copy of it. So this is important, right? The calendar events, listing down all the things in chronological order, January, February, right? And you give a visual sense of direction and expectation. Now, because you got this giant calendar, you will not be caught by surprise. You see, if I go to the club meeting and we say, "Hey, guess what? Just 3 months more, we're going to have this Pathfinder Day. We better start planning." You see, it enables visualization. That's why the calendar events is so absolutely important, okay? Right? And also help you to see the emphasis of your ministry, right? You will look at your calendar and you notice, hey, we are doing too much camping or too much same kind of honor, always nature. And then you see how lopsided it is. The calendar events enable you to see whether you have reached your ministry is proportionally balanced, whether the mission of the club and the vision of the club has been reached. So it is useful to have the calendar events. Right, as I mentioned just now, enable you to see if the programming is balanced in terms of developing the 4 areas. Do we have activity to cater to spiritual, to the social, to the mental and the physical aspect of a Pathfinder? Now, let's now talk about planning the budget. Now, this is important. When you talk about budget, you talk about 3 things, okay? Income, how much money is coming in and where is the money coming from? How much have we have right now our saving? So income will be coming in. Saving is what we still have that we keep in the bank. And what are the expected expenses? A good club will know how to answer these 3 questions. If I were to go to a club and tell me, "What's your income?" You have the answer. If I ask you, "What's your saving?" Do you have the answer? And can I ask you, do you know what the expenses for this year? Do you have the answer? Now, remember, the Pathfinder Staff Training is to enable you to really think about all these things. Get your officers to be conscious about budgeting. So plan an annual budget. It demonstrates a high sense of responsibility because money is very important. You run out of money or you overspend money, that is poor leadership. It shows irresponsibility. But because you plan and you control the income and the expense, your budget is balanced. So that's why it's very important. A well-balanced budget prevents financial disaster and also ensure accountability because every money that comes in is recorded, money that goes out is recorded. So there's accountability, transparency. Now this is important just in case people think that some hanky-panky is going on, that there've been dishonesty and so on, right? A budget maintains a high level of trust with group members because it's so clear. The income and expense statement is very clear, right? Every 3 months or when you have a Pathfinder Council meeting or Executive Committee, you have a report from the treasurer. What is our status, our financial status, all right? Now, and when people notice that your club really is a well-organized club, highly efficient, very transparent, people won't mind giving, won't mind sponsoring, won't mind donating if they see that the budget has been carefully planned and well spent. Well spent. People can see it that your club really is a very careful club when it comes to financial management. All right, evaluating the Pathfinder Club. This is important. Every year, at the end of the year, evaluate. Do our program meet the actual needs of the Pathfinder? Spiritual, social, physical, mental. Did we meet those actual needs? Are our program Christ-centered? Okay, that's always important, all right? Do they fit the vision and mission statement of the church and the club? Now, unfortunately, I didn't cover this. You should have a vision. Vision is what you want to see at the end of this year. Our Pathfinder Club will be a club that loves people, who do community service. Now, that is what I mean by a vision. A vision of what the club will be at the end of the year. And the mission, what will you be doing? Okay, so it's important to have a vision and mission statement of your club. Now, does your program include everyone? Okay, so that's important. They're sensitive to the parents' needs. Now, what do I mean by this? You do not want to have too much activity until the parents are complaining, my Pathfinder is too overly involved, right? They are not around when we want to go out there, because they always have to join Pathfinder Club. So you've got to have a balance so that it balance with parental expectation. And then, of course, ask the question, did you achieve the goal? Now, you should have a goal statement every year. At the end of this year, we will have 8 honors, we have this class, we would have gone this camping, done this thing. At the end of this year, did you achieve all the goals you mentioned? That we will teach this value and so on, okay? And of course, have an evaluation sheet. And sometimes even get a Pathfinder to grade. Was it an outstanding event, very good event, satisfactory, marginal, or unsatisfactory? All right, it's good to have this thing. Then lastly, this is where the Pathfinder comes in. Get your Pathfinder sometime to rate the program. Every time you have a camp, ask them, hey, what do you think the program was? If it is good, give 5 stars. If it's not so good, 4 stars. If it's very lousy, 1 star. If it's so horribly lousy, no star, you know. So get your Pathfinder to rate the program so that you have an idea whether they like it or not. And ask the Pathfinder, what do you like best and what do you like least? Now, it's important to receive their feedback. After each event, whether it's a hike or camp or whatever, excursion to the zoo, museum, ask them. And then what can we do to improve it next time, right? So they mention about the complaint, then tell them, okay, tell us what would you like to improve on. So you can have an open session or evaluation form session, up to you. And this is important. What new activity would you like us to do for next year? So they are giving the feedback as to what they really love to see. So do that, all right? So today I've covered this very important session, which is planning for the Pathfinder year activity.